just naturally what happens. Our brain assigns valency and we label it either good or bad. And so we remain conscious of the good stuff, and the so-called bad stuff becomes unconscious, and vice versa, right? This is terrible. We're conscious of the stuff that we don't like, the bad stuff. And so the positives become unconscious. And so it's my job to really help people to bring that other side up, and to dig into the unconscious, to bring that up to a level so that we can understand that actually there's a divinity in all things, and how things that trouble us actually serve us.
And we're live today on another episode of Imagine Fitting In podcast. I just have to say, I keep getting special and more special guests. A Jill Ogle from whereabouts in Australia?
From Newcastle, Australia, which is, if I relate it to Sydney, because everyone seems to know Sydney.
Yeah.
I'm about 2 hours north of Sydney, hour and a half north of Sydney on the East Coast. Yep.
Nice. And usually, Jill, how I start out, and we're gonna get to some more background details and how you got here, and the Imagine Fitting podcast is all about mentors. Primarily healthy lives and community. So, but I'd like you to start and just give my listeners just a little insight to kind of what keeps you busy during these days and where you hang your hat right now, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So my purpose in life is really helping people to get to the root cause of what's troubling them, and to be able to love themselves there, basically, so that we can collapse that pattern, which then stops that pattern repeating, and cause frustration in their lives. I work with people that have issues around people pleasing and imposter syndrome and perfectionism. All of these labels sort of come from childhood traumas, and whether they're little traumas, big traumas. Dad had high expectations of me. It's this emotional content that wasn't processed at the time in a healthy way that gets stuck in our physical body and causes us to repeat these patterns. This is our programming. And if we don't listen to these, to the feedback that we get in our lives by way of people triggering us, by way of what's showing up in our reality, then that little tap on the shoulder can become louder and turn into disease in some cases. And so I really help people get into the root of what's going on for them, because in my 20 years of my awakening and doing this work, really the last 5 years have been, the most sort of healing for me. I don't want to say the most growth, but the most healing for me, because instead of sort of slapping on a positive thinking, got to be high vibe, got to be, up all the time kind of Band-Aid, I've actually gone in and really, really honored myself and healed myself in the parts that I didn't even realize really were there. So,
That's amazing. And
yeah.
there are quite a few things that you mentioned there that I can personally relate to it. I my background, I used to be in advertising, and I'm an artist. I always say my essence, I'm an artist. That's why you see all this color. And my essence, an artist, and my passion has been fitness. And I truly believe that with, if you say high anxiety or, trying to like busting out of your seat and kind of that anxiousness, I really channeled that into my workouts, and I found physical fitness, and it really helped me kind of channel myself down into a path that was able to use all that excessive energy and kind of in a structural sense, right? And have to just focus my mind around my physical temple, which I call my temple logic.
Right.
And it's been powerful for me. But I related to quite a few things that you mentioned there in terms of perfectionism and, that whole thing of people pleasing. So I can relate, and I've never, I'm going to get a little personal here. I've never felt like I've like completely lost touch,
Mm,
but there have been moments where tough and, catching yourself going, okay, I'm going to go talk to somebody. And
mm,
it truly helped. It truly
mm.
helped and did amazing. So, but anyway, it's just it's wonderful that your purpose is to bring that forward, pass it forward. And, as teachers, right, and life coaches type thing, right? If we call ourselves that bringing that healing,
Mm.
it's just so honorable and such a wonderful purpose. So Jill, tell me a little bit about like where you grew up. What your parents do? What was your world like as a kid, and where were you born, and where do you live today?
Yeah, well, I live in Newcastle, Australia. I was born in Newcastle, Australia. I lived in New York for a little while. I lived in Sydney for a little while, but I keep coming back to the cafes and beaches. So yeah,
Sounds lovely.
Newcastle's beautiful. Um, yeah, growing up as a kid, I had two older brothers. We lived with what you guys would call forest behind us. We call it bush here in Australia. And we had a kind of uh, average kind of lifestyle, I guess. My dad got sick when I was young, and so my mum was the major breadwinner. And I think that looking back, I used to escape into these. I used to read a lot, and I used to play in the bush a lot behind us. And I used to love books like Magic Faraway Tree and The Enchanted Wood, and Enid Blyton's books. And I think looking back, it was sort of a bit of an escapism actually for me at the time. And I used to sort of pretend that these characters were alive in the forest behind us. And so yeah, but I had sort of an average childhood. I did have some trauma when I was little. My uncle sexually molested me when I was little. Um, and then yeah, sort of growing up, um, I had a loving family. I had a really loving family. I had a tumultuous relationship with my mother though. Since childhood, I
Mm.
just, was up and down, and I loved her and I hated her, and all of the things. Um, I attempted suicide when I was 14,
Oh my.
and then it wasn't until 19 that I sort of spoke out about what had happened to me when I was a child, and that was the start of, things coming to the surface. Um and so yeah, so when my dad died in 2007, I'd been to counselors and therapists and psychologists and all of the things over the years to sort of work through, what had happened to me when I was little. Um, and then when my dad was diagnosed, sorry, with cancer, 2007, a lady came into my work. I was working for the family business, and a lady came into my work and said, "Have you seen The Secret, the movie The Secret?" And I hadn't.
Mm.
And so I went and got it immediately, and I dived deep into watching it like 12 million times a day, and I think I've actually watched it a few hundred times, really.
Yes.
Um, and so
It brought something
I
to you.
Well, yeah, I understood the power of the mind, and its ability to impact the body, and how they were interconnected. And so, I was on this journey to kind of heal my dad. Um And I
Well,
now know that, it actually wasn't about that. It was all about my healing, my awakening, right? And so I spent 15 years, trying to be positive and doing the Abraham Hicks thing. And I ended up working for Joe Dispenza and, trying to,
oh,
reach for
really?
elevated emotions. And yeah. And, and because I couldn't maintain this sort of positive attitude, because I didn't feel good all the time, I was like, what is wrong with me? And I felt even more broken. I did Tony Robbins, and nothing kind of stuck. And so I actually felt, you know, worse often than what I did before attending some of these events.
Mm.
So yeah, so I ended up working for Joe Dispenza. And when my brother died in 2019, that was the next level of my awakening,
Oh, God
actually.
bless.
And yeah, and so in the moment I found out that he had suicide and the circumstances around that, I just had this immense unconditional love for him.
Mhm.
And it was then that I realized that because of his death, it was then that I realized that actually it's not about being positive all the time. It's not about trying to be high vibe all the time. It's not about trying to be one sided. It's actually about loving yourself and honoring yourself truly, every part of you, every single part of you. And that's when you transform, that's when you truly heal. And we try so desperately to get rid of these parts of ourselves that we don't like, and you can't. You can't. You have the entire universe within you. And so um
Would you say that when you an entire universe within you,
mm,
for some reason I think of like the entire truth, like truth, like it's like almost sometimes like when you try to put your mind around the concept of the universe, where if you have all these truths that for some reason they're there, but you actually can't see them yet, right? They haven't been yet discovered, and
well,
I relate to what you said in terms of right
mm,
the
yeah,
truth.
yeah. And I mean, this is a lot of the work that I do with people, is because we experience an event and we experience just one side of that event. It's just naturally what happens. Our brain assigns valency and we label it, either good or bad. And so we remain conscious of the good stuff, and the so-called bad stuff becomes unconscious, and
Yes.
vice versa, right? This is terrible. We're conscious of the stuff that we don't like, the bad stuff, and so the positives become unconscious. And so it's my job, to really help people to bring that other side up and to dig into the unconscious, to bring that up to a level so that we can understand that actually there's a divinity in all things, and how things that trouble us actually serve us. And it brings us into balance. It brings us into homeostasis. It balances our brain chemistry. And instead of, like I said before, trying to live this one-sided existence with no emotional resilience, because, all of the people that are attached to positive thinking, they don't have any emotional resilience, right? Because they can't handle toxic people, they can't handle negative situations, and it erodes your emotional resilience. So the work I do is we grow if you think of a tree, we grow our roots down to hell, which, the further your roots go to hell, the further your branches go to heaven, right? So we grow our roots down into the stuff that we don't like about ourselves, right? Our own
Mhm.
personal hell. And that allows our branches to grow further up into the heaven. And then what happens when someone triggers us, or, something doesn't go the way we want it to, or we're challenged, we blow and bend in the breeze instead of just completely uprooting and breaking. So yeah, exactly what you said. There's so much out there that we just don't know. Um, mm,
You know, I'm a big um I'm a big Joseph Campbell fan, and I discovered him in about, I think it was 1992, and he had passed away by then by 87, and
mm,
he had wrote this famous book called Mask of a Thousand Faces.
mm,
And but I was actually discovered his writings through a simplified version of explaining it, because it's a very deep book.
mm,
And it was the Power of Myth interview with Bill Moyers, a
mm,
12-part series, which is
mm,
now readily available on YouTube. So I'm talking
mm,
about going to the VHS the library, get the VHS tapes, watching it, and I literally recorded the audio on an audio cassette so I could keep listening to it.
yeah.
And what I relate to you is when you talk about, what fuels us, our challenges. It's almost like taking that individual, discovering your own individual path, instead of having somebody say, okay, here's what you do, here's where you go, this is what life's about. But you have all these gifts that are yet to be unfolded.
Mm,
And sometimes it takes those challenges or those hardships, obviously, to go to the dark forest, to
mm,
do that analogy, and kind of face your potential demons,
yeah.
however they're brought up, like when you mention, right, with traumas and how we put it on a conscious or unconscious level. So I completely identify with that journey. And
Mm,
I was going through a hardship at that time, and I discovered him, and he really saved my life. And the point I'm getting to is this was in the early 90s. And if you're
mm,
familiar with the early 90s, there were a tremendous amount of self-help books coming out.
mm,
The economy was booming. I was living in Chicago. It was a booming economy, I think pretty much
mm,
around the world, well, United States for sure. And there were just so many self-help books. And
mm,
what I would do, Jill, is I'd open up the latest book, and I would read the first chapter or something, the first few pages. And usually I would say, oh, there's a Campbell concept right there that
yeah.
people were putting in layman's terms so that you could ingest it. Because
Mm,
if you've ever listened to Joseph Campbell speak on and get intense, kind of like with conversations, it goes pretty interesting deep. And
yeah.
I find it fascinating. And to this day, my character and all the things I practice in multiple mediums in the arts. There's probably not a medium I don't participate in regularly or have not participated. That being said, I consider those my different masks of my
Mm,
during my journey to face my various whatever. So
mm.
tell me a little bit more, like, okay, so do you have any memories, like when you were in the what you call the bush, and so touch with nature?
Mm.
That was beautiful. When you were a kid, do you remember, I always ask my guests this, do you have any specific memories of like what you wanted to be when you were a kid? Like any
What?
memories like that?
When I was a kid, I actually, and incidentally, Joseph Campbell was a Jung fan, a Carl Jung fan, which is, the work I do, right? The shadow work. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, brilliant man. And that interview series was fantastic. Um, yeah, actually, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actress. I had this wild imagination, and yeah, I wanted to be an actress when I grew up. And um, however, when you look back and you actually look back at the themes of what I was talking about, what I was reading, what I was, portraying, because our purpose is always there, right? The thing that we're meant to do is always there. It's just that we take on other people's ideas of what we should be doing. We take on
Right.
society's ideas of what we should be doing. But if you really want to know what your purpose here is in life, you just look back at the themes. And, I had themes of magic and magic spells and traveling to other dimensions, which we do in meditation. And I was even teaching universal principles back then, with some of the things that I used to talk about with my dad, or joke about with my dad, I should say. And so, so while I thought I wanted to be an actress, because I think there's just these big, you're an actress or an astronaut or a policeman, or it's this kind of level, right? When you're a child,
You're
you know,
you're just you're like a magician, explorer, like, "Okay, anything's possible. Let's go."
exactly. And you're not really thinking that when you're 5 years old, that,
Right.
oh my God, I'm going to teach metaphysics. And so, even though, I wanted to be an actress, there were definite themes threaded throughout my childhood, throughout my teen years, into psychic phenomena and all these sorts of things.
Hmm.
So yeah, it was always there, but
That's
yeah.
it's very interesting. A couple things stood out there is like number one, I truly believe I should have been an actor. Or I also remember at one time like wanting to dance, to be like a dancer. But then again,
Okay.
where I'm from, the Midwest of United States, it's sort of like, and it was like not a hardcore idea, but it was one of these
Mm,
passing thoughts of like, oh, that looks so fun. It looks so
mm,
expressive. And I end up, um, becoming a physiotherapist, and I'm a balance specialist. My moniker is I'm the balance professor,
mm,
and I've been doing that for over 30 years.
mm,
So that being said, it is the body, that temple logic, I call it. It's like that. It's your ultimate vehicle. And I think that one of the things when I was got involved with a business, like I mentioned to you before, it literally kind of gave me a structure and foundation to settle myself down. So I left
mm,
advertising, and I didn't want to use my creative energies to go on stage and develop propaganda for
mm,
products I didn't believe in.
mm,
So I had a moral dilemma at 28, asking myself, what do I want to put on my gravestone? What do I want to
mm,
be remembered for? This was after a breakup of relationship, almost got married at 28, and went and sat on the edge of the Grand Canyon. And
mm,
I don't know if you've ever been there or any something
I
massive
have.
like that, right?
Yeah.
That, that when you look and there's just like a, less than a 16th of an inch of that depth. And you think
Mm,
that's 100,000 years or something like that.
mm,
Like,
mm,
I am nothing. I mean,
mm,
I'm just a little speck in the universe.
mm,
So I had this revelation that there was more to me than I could ever imagine.
mm,
And it's my challenge to
mm,
see how much that I can bring forth.
mm,
And we know through our life experiences, why, especially losing loved ones,
mm.
that it makes you, catch yourself and just say, you know, wow, and it's so final, and you're going,
Yeah.
it brings like a accentuation of the finality and how fragile it is. So it's like, okay, if it's going to be very fragile, and
Mm,
I don't know at any moment that this could be gone,
mm,
then it's sort of like looking for that great party. I'm going to have a hell of a good time
mm,
trying to honor myself first,
mm,
and then take that path that is, there's no light, it's not the one suggested. I
mm,
have an idea where how I can stay out of trouble and don't get the too wrong a path. And that's been my journey. So
mm.
now
Well,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, I just want to touch back on the should have been an actor. I want to challenge you on that because I think if you should have been an actor, you would have been. But it didn't happen that way because it wasn't meant to happen that way. And this is a big thing that keeps people stuck in life is they think that it should have been a different way,
Hmm.
but it was never going to be a different way. It happened exactly as it should have been. And owning and loving that is actually what what gives you peace in your life, and allows you to love your life as it is.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I just wanted to challenge you on that and to give a little moment to the listeners, because it's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and when I said that, when I look back, and there's something about, like, as an artist, my essence, I'm such
Mm,
an artist. I'm a visionary. And it just seemed that when I said I should have been, like, I should have been, or I thought I should maybe do that, or that could have been an avenue. It's because of, like, my creative imagination, and it's really confirming everywhere all the way to here that you're right. I traveled my path, and I'm here, and
mm,
I've never felt stronger in my life. I've
mm,
never been more happy.
mm,
And I think it's that we go back to those childhood imagination, and when you have that imagination, that you want to be a part of almost as many stories as possible.
mm.
And look
And
at
you're
what we're
doing that. You're
right?
doing that in your podcast. Yeah.
Exactly. Look what we're doing now, all the story narratives, and it's like, hey,
Mm,
this is fun to remember that it can be exploratory, ongoing,
mm,
and that, keep your eyes wide open, as they say, right?
mm,
So
mm.
who's been a mentor in your life, and what lessons have you learned from them? And it sounded like your dad. I'm interested. What was your relation? Your dad? I think it was a special one. Was he?
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely a daddy's girl. For sure. Yeah. Peas in a pod we were. Similar sense of humor. Just yeah, really best friends. He was definitely very special to me. In terms of um mentors and the work that I do. Um, my first boss, actually, when I got into real estate, was also very important. Um, Not to take away from my dad. My dad was very special to me.
Hmm.
However, moving into this work, yeah, Michael, he actually encouraged this to sort of come out of me. Heading down this path and healing the relationship with my mother, and um yeah, so he was very influential. And then, obviously working for Joe, that was an interesting experience. I really looked up to him for quite a while. And so, I've had some incredible people in my life. I had a business uh consultant, who came into our family business, gosh, maybe 25 years ago.
Hmm.
And she's like a guardian angel to me, actually. Just sort of kept in touch
Oh, I love
ever
those.
ever since. And yeah, she's quite psychic, and she's really just been a guardian angel to me. I can not talk to her for a couple of years, and then we catch up, and it's like, nothing's changed. So I've
Exactly.
really had, yeah, I've really had some amazing influences in my life. And even my mom, like, I have a fantastic relationship with her too now. And
That's wonderful.
she's just a force of nature. She's 74 years old. She's just started a new business. She's just unstoppable. And so even seeing that and having that as a role model is really, really beautiful too. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So
Mm.
you talk about traditional healing tools like meditation and affirmations. Um, can you explain why sometimes they fall short, and what actually does create more lasting change?
Yeah. Um I think the problem with affirmations is, we're so focused on our thoughts create our reality, that we get caught up in thinking that it's just our conscious thoughts. It's just this fleeting moment of, like, I'm not good enough. Oh no, I've said I'm not good enough. I'm screwed, right? And it's not that. You can say that, and that's not going to be enough to program your mind. However, it is a very clear indicator that there is something going on below the surface
Mm.
that is wanting to be healed. And so in terms of affirmations, I actually think that they can keep people stuck and do the opposite of what they're trying to do, because, you know, the conscious mind is nowhere near as powerful as the subconscious mind, and it's the subconscious mind that's ruling your life, right? It's controlling you. And so I can sit here. I mean, a billionaire is not going to sit there and say, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy, I'm wealthy. So there's part of you that doesn't believe that you're wealthy if you're saying that. And so what we actually want to do, instead of sitting there trying to put this Band-Aid over a gaping wound, is go in and find out where your wealth is, right? Because you'll
Mhm.
be wealthy and you'll be not wealthy. And I know that that sounds funny, but you'll have your own form of wealth. And, maybe you've got this $1 million business idea that you just haven't brought forth into form yet. So it's about really, starting to unpack and getting to the root cause of things, rather than just sitting there saying these affirmations, I love myself, I love myself. Well, you don't, because you wouldn't be saying that if you did, right? So what
Right.
is it? What is it that you don't love about yourself? Let's go and love yourself there, right? Um, and
Maybe
and say, mm,
maybe, that the journey of I mean, obviously the affirmations can definitely, and meditations on things that you want to consciously address. They are kind of bridging tools to potentially then discover or be able to show cracks of your true self, to even kind of put it out to the universe where other people will notice you and interact with you. I find that exchange is when when you meet someone, and the timing of like where you are in your life, and you have some sort of exchange, and all of a sudden somebody says something, or they recognize something in you that you never did. It's interesting to me in terms of, like, it seems like we're all the universe bumping into each other,
well, we are, and we're all
right?
mirrors. And so, if you meet someone and they recognize something in you, they're actually speaking about themselves, for starters. Right? They're seeing their reflection, they're seeing their disowned part in you. And quite often, when you compliment someone, it doesn't land for the other person. If they don't believe
Mm,
it, it doesn't land. And
right.
so, right. And so we want to go in there and find out, why is it not landing? Right? Instead of just throwing out these compliments all the time, why isn't it landing? Really get it to land. Because
Mhm.
if we do walk through life with the understanding that everyone is a mirror and everyone's coming to heal us and everyone's coming to be healed, we can move through life saying, okay, well, what is this reflecting to me? Where is this disowned part? How can I love that part of me? And and then conversely, it's not just all about the dark stuff that we don't want to be, the shadow. It's also about the parts that we really want to be. And, who are we giving those parts to hold? I mean, singers and actresses and sports people, celebrities in general, they get paid the big dollars because we're all projecting our brilliance onto them. We're saying, hey, I don't feel worthy of this, so you hold it for me, and I'm going to admire you, and I'm going to
Oh,
put you
wow.
up on a pedestal, and I'm going to praise you. And religions and whatever, gurus, right?
Wow.
Where we right.
Wow,
But if you
that is a nugget, girl.
Yeah. But if you spot it, you got it. Okay. And so if you see something you don't like in someone, it's within you. If you see something that you do like in someone, it's within you. And so this is the work that I teach, is to love the stuff you don't, take back the stuff you do, and you become more whole. You become a whole being. And then you don't need affirmations because you are it. And
Right.
it's embodied wisdom. It's not just something that you're trying to kind of keep up with, you know.
Mhm.
When I started in real estate, so I'd left the family business. I moved to New York for a while. I came home. I started in real estate, and I was so keen to make it. And so I would be with my first boss. He was so encouraging. I used to go down before work and write affirmations every day. I wrote 105 affirmations for 6 months. Nothing changed. Nothing changed. Right? So why? Because I wasn't addressing the root cause. I wasn't addressing the deeper programming that was actually keeping me stuck. I was trying to put
Mhm.
this Band-Aid affirmation over the
Right.
top.
Just
Ho-
surface kind of stuff.
Surface level stuff, you know, and people, you know, will spend so much time doing that. Meanwhile, an hour, get to the root cause, it's done, you know? So, um, so I do think that affirmations, while I do believe everything's perfect and you're exactly where you're meant to be, I'm not an advocate for affirmations because I do think that they can keep you stuck. Um, if you understand,
Almost distracted.
distracted and kind of focused on the surface level healing and yeah, just enough to make you feel like you're doing something, or just
Mhm.
enough to make you feel like, you know, things are getting better, but nothing's changing, you know. The work I do, you will see instantaneous results in your reality.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
you have to.
let me ask you, in your show notes, it says you developed a grounded, no fluff approach to transformation. And
Yeah.
what do you how do you describe that fluff approach?
Root cause shadow integration is how I describe it. So we get to the root cause of what's troubling you. We really bring that into balance by seeing your reflective awareness. So if someone's dismissing your opinion all the time and that's really pissing you off, then we'll find out where you're actually doing that. That's the reflective awareness, because we're all mirrors. And so if that's upsetting you, then you have to be doing it also. But you're not aware of it, and that's why it's upsetting you, right?
Oh,
Right? This is classic shadow.
wow.
So what we do is we find where you've done it, and it's always there 100% of the time. And you know, people will fight me on this, and when it pops up, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't realize I was doing that."
Right.
Excuse me. Um, I mean, I can use myself as an example. I have a real pride in building community. I love building community. I love bringing people together. And when I was working through this, because I had a trigger around being excluded, right, which is the opposite of inclusion, community. And so as I was working through this, I had to find where I was excluding people. And because I have such a pride on building community, it was really blocking me. It was really blocking me from saying, no, I don't exclude people. I don't exclude people. Um, but I know because of the principles that actually I must. And so I looked and I looked and I looked and I found it. And when I found it, I collapsed the trigger of being excluded, and now I love building community. And I also know that sometimes I exclude people, and that's okay. And sometimes I'm excluded, and that's okay.
Right.
Um, right. So instead of being so wounded and ruminating over something for not even just days or weeks, but months and sometimes years, right? Um, you can actually, you know, get in there and you can collapse that program and collapse that trigger, love it, integrate it back into your being. Yeah.
You know that oh, I can relate to on so many levels of that. Um, with all of a sudden leaving advertising and being, you know, terrified that not not good enough to go down this path where all of a sudden I just decide to, you know, with no heavy physiology degree to go in this business and play a part
Mm,
in that whole I don't know if that was just a crazy idea but I found the idea of it enabling me to be more powerful than I was or step out into some place that made me truly uncomfortable.
Mm,
And but and the rewards were even more amazing, but all along the way, because I relate to what you said, I got to a point where just here recently, when I started this podcast, again, a number of life events happened,
mm,
and I began to understand and see some of the root causes, and was able to kind of address them, and
mm,
just kind of like spend a little time and kind of chew on them a little bit,
mm,
emotionally,
mm,
and it was a blessing, and it was a
mm,
self-discovery, it was an amazement, and I got to a point where I'm like, "Okay, I'm just going to be more a community builder," and I spent so much time working with individuals and coaching them and getting them in tune with their physical plane,
mm,
and I've come to a place where I realize that when I first started the program, I was trying to improve childhood education and
mm,
just try to help prevent the onslaught of diabetes that was coming on. And I never imagined that now my program, through my own self-discovery,
mm,
realized my program is so intensive and so present, makes you so present to do something on a physiological level that takes extreme amount of balance and patience and focus that you can't be anywhere else.
mm,
It allows you to be really like, oh my gosh, this is just me right now, and it almost I to me it feels like it unleashes distractions and all this, like some of the stuff you say that like we're carrying or trying to mask or we put band-aids on, and it's very humbling. So I've
mm,
now, and I have to mention this because I started this podcast in honor of my late nephew.
mm,
I lost him to addiction at 19 years old, and I thought like, okay, I am both empowered, and then also I felt um what's the word I'm looking for? Just completely helpless.
mm,
But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought about like, no, 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 no. Get get utilize what you're doing and package it. So that's kind of what I'm doing. But anyway, so I'm literally getting involved with addiction mental health centers with my physical based program. So that's exciting on my end. But, I completely relate to so many things you say. And the work that you're doing is amazing.
mm.
And you just, for our talk right now, you're lighting off buttons and bells in my head, and it's great. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you do to become aware of, what are some things people do what can they do to become aware of their own triggers?
Yeah. I mean, the first start is becoming aware, right? Is to having self-awareness. Um, and it really is just slowing down and being mindful and understanding that, you know, when you have that physical reaction, when someone does, tick you off, when someone does trigger you, just ask yourself, what did they do? What did they do that actually really upset me? And you can start to journal these things and start to make a list of these things. But yeah, you've just got to become present. And I don't really know how to teach self-awareness because, I feel like you are and you aren't. And I think people will have self-awareness in areas that are important to them and probably, you know, not in others when they're standing in front of people at the supermarket in front of, in the aisle and you're trying to reach for something and they're just like, oh, another person exists, right? So, I think that self-awareness is just something that you kind of got to work at. You've just got to, really sort of slow down and be present with what's going on around you. Notice the reaction that you're getting from people when you communicate, so that you can say, oh, is there something off with my communication? I noticed that you squinted your eyes trying to work out what I was saying. Can I say that in a different way? Right. So you're just becoming aware of your surroundings, aware of the people that you're talking to. And anytime you feel triggered or upset or something, sort of, even a judgment, when you're just like, oh, cringe, right? That is showing you something within you. And
Mm,
so you can just start to make a list of these judgments. What did they do? What did they not do that's really upsetting me? And then ask yourself, if you're brave, you can ask yourself, where have I done this? And that starts to just soften your judgment of them. I mean, there's a few questions that we go through to really, really balance it out and really collapse this program, but that can just get you to start to soften, instead of, oh, he did this to me. Oh, I do that too. Okay, I can see that now, right?
right, right, right. And
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on? uh, It made me think about when you were talking about just the grocery line. And
It's just
made
a
me,
classic example, you
yeah,
know?
yeah, right. And it also like makes me be reminded of Joseph Campbell and about when I talk about the mask of a thousand faces,
Mm.
where like these masks that any given time during any given day and circumstance that maybe someone sees a behavior that they want to say a kind thought, or they want to say some kind of comment or whatever, that there's these various masks that like slide on, that like oh yeah, I should say that, so I have to, this is that mask, and then all of a sudden that mask, and I guess I'm relating to our conversation and trying and kind of folding it back into my historical, why I was attracted to Campbell,
Mm,
and in putting my head around, what I believe, like now that I look back, well, all the masks that over time that I would you know, create and utilize, and then after a while would discover that, okay, this one's not working
mm,
anymore. And it made me realize that nothing is static. Life is dynamic. And
mm,
it's constantly changing and growing, and allow myself to grow. And I think that was one of my biggest messages from Campbell was, number one, don't be afraid to go into somewhere that's unknown. Number two, kind of just stumble on in.
mm,
And 9 times out of 10, you know, you're usually okay, right? And we can envision ourselves trying to do something, or think that we wanted to do something. Like you said, when you see that, that's a great nugget when when you see somebody that's popular and you're a big fan, and it's like, that's amazing because it just makes so much sense.
mm,
So, obviously, Jill, you are a a powerhouse.
mm.
Do you do, obviously you do, probably do online coaching and stuff like that for sure, I bet, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, my business is one-on-one coaching,
Uh-huh.
and then also I have a community membership that I run. So we have classes each week, so the one-on-one coaching, I'm coaching you. And then the community membership, I'm also teaching these principles so that people can actually, live and breathe this work, as well as there's group coaching as well. But it's more of a hybrid thing where I'm teaching you the principles behind, the coaching. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's really impactful. And the results that we're getting and the testimonials that are coming through, it's just amazing to see, after seeing so many people struggle in these other communities that I was involved with, seeing so many people have, big shifts and really finding calm and clarity and, healing back injuries and all sorts of things, right? Health conditions and divorces settling and it's just incredible. It's incredible to see, and it really, really lights me up each time. I hear from someone and they tell me how well they're doing, and it's them, right? All I've done is ask, some pretty great questions, and it's them finding it within them. Um,
Right.
and it's beautiful. Yep.
That's that self-discovery. I find it in my work that on that physical plane where I
Mm,
have them, they question, I show them something in terms of it's almost such a skill level that it takes a physical capacity on a
yeah.
kinetic level of movement. And they're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, that looks so difficult." And then when you structure it and break it down,
Yeah.
compartmentalize it, and then you put
Yeah.
it all together, it's amazing. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden it just goes off, right? And you're
Yes.
just so rewarding. So now
Yes.
I think when you say I in your notes as well, uh, collapse the charge, collapse the charge. How does that process help someone heal trauma or breaking
Yeah. Well,
lifelong patterns?
yeah. So all of our patterns are from past programming, right? And so they're usually their trauma, big T trauma, little T trauma, or their emotional baggage kind of related. Because, even if your parents said to you when you were little, you can't even keep your room clean. And that was enough for you to say, oh, I can't, right? And then you grow up through life thinking, I can't. Then we want to get into that moment of perception, which to you could be that could be traumatic to you, right?
Mhm.
Either way, you haven't processed that in a healthy way to say, well, I can clean my room and sometimes I don't want to, right? Because that's the truth. That's the truth, right? But we take it on as I can't, and then that impacts our world, and we move through life thinking I can't do this. And so we want to get back to that moment and to find how that served you, because it will have. There is good and bad in everything. There is light and dark in everything. There is a silver lining, if you want to call it that. Um, and so we want to get back in there and find that unconscious piece, because it's buried deep within you.
Mhm.
When we bring that to the surface, you actually collapse that charge. That's your karma. That's your karma breaking down. That's the pattern collapsing. It no longer needs to repeat because you've got the lesson. And so that's what I mean when I say collapse the charge. It's the triggers that we have in life. It's these charges that plug us in and get us fired up. That
It's
yeah,
almost
once we
it's almost like continuous fuel.
um the triggers.
Yes. I mean, in terms of just, ongoing, um, being able to kind of, we say we repeat certain patterns and,
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the repetitive patterns that people, they come to me and they're like, I keep attracting the same men. I don't know what's wrong with me. Like, I just keep attracting the same men. Or, I've changed jobs 4 times and it's the same shit wherever I go. And it's like, what's the common denominator here? Right. And
right?
so, right. So we want to get in there and look at the subconscious pattern, the program that they're running, because just like your heart beats, that's a subconscious program, right? Moving our physical body, that's a subconscious program. I don't have to sit here and say, you know, name all of the ligaments and all of the muscles to be able to move my hand, right? Our body's doing that on a program.
Right.
And in the same way, we're attracting people into our life. We're attracting situations and circumstances into our life in the same way on an automatic program. And so why does this keep happening is the program. And so we want to get in there and actually get to the root cause and collapse that program there so that it doesn't need to repeat anymore. We've got the lesson. Thank you very much. We can move on. Yeah.
Okay. So, I know your time is valuable. I got one more. What are some things people can do to lessen the potential for burnout? Like, when we're talking about like almost a conscious effort to increase our awareness, right? And identify these triggers. So what's your thoughts on that?
Do what you love. Really, really,
Yeah,
it is
right, really? Yeah.
it's really very simple, you know. One of the first things that I do with people when they come to work with me, particularly if they have a dis-ease, is to ask them what lights them up, what energizes them, what's meaningful to them. um this is what you're meant to be doing, right? What
Mhm.
I mean, you can see how animated I am talking about this stuff, right? This
Right.
lights me up.
Yeah.
and and I know the same thing will be for you too, right? When you talk about your art, when you talk about your your physical programs, uh it lights you up. So that's a clear indication that that's something that's purposeful for you. And so the more you can either dump what doesn't, so we dump, do, and we delegate. You want to dump whatever doesn't need to be done, delegate whatever you can. And I know sometimes this is hard. You know, you've got to have the funds to do it, you've got to have the resources. But if you can find someone, if you don't love doing your taxes and you can find someone that loves doing taxes, let them. you know,
Right.
um, if you don't love marketing for your business and you find someone that does love marketing, let them. Stick to your zone of genius. If
Yeah.
you love being in front of people and talking about metaphysics and teaching and actually teaching people and coaching clients, just do that. Try and delegate everything else, because when you're doing the things that you don't want to do, you're going to be dissatisfied. You're going to be
Right.
frustrated. You're going to be annoyed. You're going to have chaos going on. When you really refine what lights you up and what has meaning to you, and you follow that bliss, for
Yes.
Joseph Campbell, or
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right, you follow that inner compass, that North Star. um, you're going to be lit up every day, right? It's
Yeah.
really not hard, right? You want to live a life you love, do things you love.
100%. When I know at this point, because I'm doing my my passion,
Mm,
um, is that I know that people feel that energy.
mm,
And it's not it's almost like when I'm in it and I'm just truly present and just doing what that is that I do right now, and
mm.
I, it's like time doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And I go back to, and I'll end my comment on this. For me, it's sort of like when when you dream
Mm,
and all of a sudden you're laying in bed, you wake up and you're like, what was that?
mm,
Oh my gosh. And you're
mm,
like, okay, trying to wrap your head around it, like, whoa, is there's a potential there? And what was that? And why is that? And then the moment you that time when you like you go, okay, I gotta get out of bed. I gotta go, right?
mm,
I gotta get up. And once your feet actually touch the floor, you may have had some kind of thoughts and visions of like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm laying there. I'm like, I just woke up. And then as soon as your feet touch the floor, like the world just rushes back into you. All
mm,
this, like who you are, what you're responsible for, right? Oh, I got to do this today. I got to do this today and this today. And it just kind of almost not whitewashes, but it like goes, oh, another layer over like, okay, this is my world. I'd like to do that.
mm.
Um, but to me, I always would mention to people go, okay, so let's imagine you won all the money ever in the world you'd need. And you woke up, what would you do when you woke up next day? The first thing you got your feet on the ground, besides go to see an attorney and get your finances set. What do you want to go do? What would you want to go
E
do?
exactly.
I
And
think it's
I
powerful.
would even give them a couple of weeks to, just be frivolous and,
Just
like
well,
shoot
yes,
do whatever you want, right? Right? But for
absolutely.
2 weeks. After that 2 weeks, you have all the money in the world. What would you love to do? Because
Right.
it's true. It's true. If
Purposeful,
you have,
purposeful.
mm, yeah, because I really don't think there's a lot of people out there that would just, oh, I just love to go lay at a resort. Well,
R
I think you'd do that for a little bit, and I think you'd get bored.
Right.
Um, there's
Well,
something.
that's whole thing about, like, right, when you talked about when I mentioned about how, dealing with burnout, you have
Mm,
these it's ebb and flow of peaks
mm,
and valleys of, right, getting yourself busy, then needing to relax. And if you're doing something very purposeful and you really love it, yeah, you can get burnout too, right? Physically and mentally, and you have to kind of recharge and say, okay, all right, am I still growing? Is what am I doing? And I'm in it. And it's obviously a super powerful momentum. And like when you mentioned, right, after you have this, say the stresses, right, the stress on a physiological plane, right, when you're doing something you don't really like to do, especially if but two things, right, it's a double whammy. You're not doing what you really love, and you're doing something that's obviously not really what you want to do.
mm,
So, how much you want to carry that burden, and we can
mm,
turn that stress and that burnout into literally physiological changes and dis-ease, right? Dis-ease in the body.
yep.
So, I'm a big believer in that. And for me personally, Jill, I, you know, I saw my father work for 17 years for, a organization that all of a sudden and he raised a family, and God love him. He did what he needed to do for his family, and that was that sacrifice. But at any given moment, somebody can, when you work for somebody else, and that's why I kind of like, I've been destined and determined, like, okay, I'm going to do what I love, and no matter how hard it is and difficult, like, I'm going to slip and trip and fall, or I'm going to get all the rewards. I don't want to go all the way down the line doing something that I really don't, not really completely into, have no control, and then all of a sudden have it being pulled out from underneath me. So
Mm,
anyway, that's like that whole, go to Vegas, baby. The way I look at it, there's three things, right? Three. You either win, break even, or lose. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
yeah, and even when you lose, you win. Really, like really. This is part of what I teach people. When the rug is pulled out from underneath you, how is that serving you?
Right.
When you lose, how is that serving you? I mean, some of the greatest innovations and uh, thought leaders and some of the greatest things that have come out of our universe have come through people going through challenge. They're not birthed when you're laying on the beach. Generally, they're not birthed when you're laying on the beach sipping pina coladas, right? It's when you've lost everything and you're trying to claw your way back. Carl Jung had his greatest discoveries when he was in a mental bloody hospital.
Mm,
So, Sylvester Stallone, he was down to his last $20. He sold his dog to create Rocky, right? So
wow.
he got his dog back, but like, come on, like we've got to look at how our challenges serve us, because they do. And until we get our head around this concept that life's got to be this Pollyanna, like everything going smoothly kind of way,
Right.
and really start to embrace our challenges. I think Ryan Holiday wrote a book, The Obstacles Are the Way. Our challenges, they're either stumbling blocks or they're stepping stones, and we get to choose.
Got
We
it.
get to choose. And I
Another
promise
nugget.
you, yeah, and I promise you there is gold in every single one of your challenges. I promise you.
I have to say personally that
Mm,
actually, the passing, I always had in the back of my mind to do this kind of podcast, to do a
mm,
podcast.
mm,
Um, and I did have both the loss and a major challenge in my life as well. And this is what I'm now sitting here in front of you. And I literally, to distract myself from that, I don't know, my conditioned my conditioned process of get wrapped up in like, you don't want to swallow, you don't want to like just lay in that something that didn't go appropriate for whatever degree, whoever's fault that was. But you just
Mm,
get up and right, you either fail, you either succeed or you learn.
mm, mm.
So,
Yeah.
but that's your Jill, your work is amazing.
Thank you.
Um, I have much respect. Follow your bliss has been my mantra since probably 1992.
Mm,
And I am working in my podcast to specifically help young people and especially young men
beautiful.
and bring around the message of the fact that how powerful mentors are, to
Mm,
talk to us and share your story about your mentorship and who
mm,
inspired you, and
mm,
shine lights. We all need it, and they never stop coming. So keep
mm,
your eyes open, and they're around you.
mm.
And again, I'm being mentored today, and I hope to feel that I'm um, spreading the love and passing it forward. And that's the whole purpose of my podcast, is to try to pass it forward.
Nice. You're
So
definitely doing that. Beautiful.
thank you so much, Jill. I really appreciate your time. Um,
Likewise.
and I'll touch base with you later. We're going to have to, details. I've never been to Australia. So,
Yeah. It's so
um,
far. It's so far from everywhere.
but
I know.
it kind of sounds like, decompress, address that burnout, right? Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Jill, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
And you take care and have just a wonderful rest of summer. Well, is it summer there?
No, it's winter. It's quite cold.
Oh, okay, cold. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
enjoy your season.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Likewise. Thanks, Greg.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. All right, everybody. That'll be it. Wrapping it up. All right, kids. Till next time. Bye-bye.